Joining us now, she's in our 17th season. Hard to believe in Kentucky. Someone that certainly has been a longtime friend of the show. Our traditional get together. I speak of Rachel Lawson, who's kind enough to join us here. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's always exciting to get on in December because that means softball's just around the corner. So love it.
Yeah, busy time, obviously, in general, with obviously NFCA convention going on in Louisville and things like that. I'm always curious. I want to, from that standpoint, with when you're going with the NFCA convention every year as a coach, do you go out of your way to bring up topics to other coaches? Do coaches bring up topics? How does that work when coaches all get together at an NFCA convention?
Well, it's different depending on who you are, talking with. So a long, long time ago, I didn't say much, and then Karen Weekly, of all people, she was one of the higher ups, and she would plant me to be in the crowd because she was on the board, and she'd be like, "Hey, kind of get the top, get the ball rolling and get people talking or whatever." And at first, I was like, "Are you crazy?" Because then all the daggers start coming or whatever. But I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." And that's what got me started a long time ago, just getting comfortable at the convention. So you have a couple of different dynamics going on. Obviously, you have your side conversations going on, and then you have people who will bring things up in the big room. But a lot of times what will happen is people who aren't comfortable speaking in the big room will come to one of us who is, and they'll say what they want to have said, and then we kind of bring that up as well. So you have our own conversations going on, and then we also try to help people that aren't comfortable in that setting.
No, it's tremendous. There's obviously with the convention, and certainly always thinking about how to improve the game and everything. What's kind of the with your fellow coaches? Has there been one topic as coaches that has been certainly been brought up as far as, hey, this is something we may have to look at eventually as far as involving the sport?
Well, of course, we beat the recruiting calendar to death, and that seems to come up all the time. But the thing that keeps coming up, but we haven't really organized or mobilized, which I would like to see, is we really need to increase our scholarships. You would talk about it every year, and then it kind of goes to the wayside after the convention. But the fact that we're still dealing with 12 scholarships, with the increased roster sizes and things like that is crazy. And the fact that we're just an equivalency sport, there's a lot of inequity built within the sport because academic money does not count towards scholarships, and the way schools distribute money is different across the board. You have people who have regional help, you have people whose state give a lot more academic money, so there's not a lot of parity amongst the sport, and that's one reason why you tend to see the same people in the postseason. So if you make this sport a head count sport, not only will you be helping significantly more athletes at a higher level, what you'll be doing is you'll have a better distribution of athletes across the board. And to be honest with you, I believe that there will be more athletes playing at the mid-major level that are elite caliber. So instead of being on the roster spot for 20% or 30% on a Power Five, they may choose to be scholarshiped, which at this point which would be a full ride at a non-Power Five. And I think that's one reason why the basketball tournament is so great, because there is, depending if it's men or women, it's a head count sport, and it makes it more equitable across the board, which makes the tournament a little bit better. What you see more Cinderella stories.
It's a great perspective, and I think it's a great point that doesn't I don't hear that enough as far as the head count, as far as the sport. Why is that? Why is that not been a bigger topic? Because I figure that would make a ton of sense considering all the players that you need on a roster in softball versus other sports that maybe have a more favorable
I think that
situation.
my guess would be that this gets into the big budget, small budget things. So there's a lot of coaches who don't want to pass things like this because at the schools are at, they don't think that their schools will pass that and will fund them at that level. Whereas at the Power Five level, obviously, we think if it's funded at that level, we're going to push the administrations to make sure that it happens. And in my opinion, that's the only way to grow the sport. And so, as someone who has been at the Power Five level, at the non-Power Five level, I was a mid-major player. Even though I think that it at first seems that it wouldn't help the mid majors, I think that it would help them from a scholarship perspective, assuming they can get the support and rally around it.
let's talk obviously a little bit about your team and start with last year. I'm curious as a coach, when you go through a season like you did last year, where you have a significant injury, in particular in the circle with what happened with Stephanie, how do you evaluate that season in the off season as far as preparing you for the following season when you have circumstances that you could not control, like an injury, affect the season in a lot significantly? How do you evaluate a season like that?
Well, we had a couple of things going on. First, that was my personal first significant injury to a pitcher in my entire career. So that was, you have a little bit here and there that you have to manage, but I've never had anyone go down like that. And so you have to look at your staff as a whole. You don't, Stephanie, obviously, when she went down, was one of the nation's best. But you always want to make sure, number one, that you have several number ones, and you certainly need to go that direction. And for whatever reason, I just hadn't gotten us to a position where I had several starters at the same caliber Stephanie was pitching at. Although I will tell you that I was really impressed and proud of how some of the seniors did. They came up with some key wins that really propelled us into the postseason. And had they not done that against schools like Georgia, we wouldn't have made the postseason. So I was really proud of how we put it together. But you certainly have to look at the pitching staff as a whole and make sure that you have several number ones. And then the other thing that I think you look at is the lineup of the whole. Where are you getting production? Who are you getting production from? Where are you lacking and you need to amp it up? And from our perspective, I just don't think we did a good enough job producing runs at the bottom of the order either. So it's funny when you look at our offensive numbers, they weren't great nationally, but the one thing we did do when we scored, it was under pressure. So we maintained the character of the program, that we were gutty, we performed well when the lights were on and all that sort of stuff. But you certainly don't want to be in those tight stress games over and over and over again, which we were in that position a lot last year.
Obviously, the question you're going to get asked a lot between now and February is Kayla Kowalik. Obviously, not going to be on the you're not going to be able to pencil her in their lineup. First of all, how strange has it been this past fall not to have put her in the lineup, write her name down, which has to be bizarre for you. And then obviously, you don't replace a player like that. She's arguably in the conversation for the greatest Wildcat ever. She's personally my favorite player that you've ever had there at Kentucky. I just enjoyed watching her play. She had a great rookie year in the WPF, winning Rookie of the Year. But how strange is it not to have her around as far as playing, and then you don't replace her, but it does create opportunities for others now to step in and step up?
Well, it's tough, right? I mean, no question. I would argue that Kayla is the greatest Wildcat who's ever played. I think right now it's between her and Molly Johnson Belcher still, but I believe Kayla's numbers. The thing is, you start every game exciting, and every single time she got up to bat, something could happen. So even if she got out, it was she forced the defense to make a play. She'd go deep and count. I think she's arguably one of the best leadoff batters who's ever played softball, not just for Kentucky, but of all time. And the thing is, I don't talk about replacing players either. I talk about who's the successor. And I don't know, it'd be hard to fill Kayla's shoes all the way around. So first, we've got to find somebody who's going to, start the game off with some kind of exciting stuff. And that's something. We have several candidates for the position. I haven't really dialed in on one particular person. So that's something, but she just brings such an excitement, competitiveness, steadiness that you just don't see very often. So we got to figure out who our leadoff batter is going to be, because we had her for 5 years, 4.5 years, whatever, you're going to count COVID. And that is something that most people don't have the luxury of. So you got to do that. The other thing we got to figure out, we really didn't have a lot of power in the middle of our order last year for whatever reason. We just didn't get it done in that way. And so that's something that, I've changed the lineup up quite a bit, mixed things up. And so we're really looking to boost the power numbers in the middle and the backside of the order. So that's kind of where we're headed right now.
You mentioned obviously having figured, the leadoff spot. What do you look for? I mean, that's unique. It's one thing to have somebody succeed a certain player in a lineup, but that is an important spot in the lineup, as you mentioned, to set the tone for the offense. What are you looking for? Is it a situation? Are you looking for any specific, advanced metrics or the approach that they have at the plate that you say, hey, that might be a good fit? Because I've seen teams that will go through a season where they'll have 5, 6 different leadoff hitters. Some like to have power at the leadoff hitter. Some like to have speed. Some like to have to take pitches. What do you look for? Is that something do you think you'll have figured out before the season? Or do you think that could go into the season and you might try some different things?
Well, first, I think it'll go into the season. I think it's going to depend what we're looking for in that game. One year I had two different leadoff batters. If I needed the game to start calm, I would start one person because I knew she probably would draw a walk or would do that. Or if I wanted to start it with a bang, I'd put another person in that would swing at the first three pitches and hit it over, kind of thing. So on that particular year, there were two people, depending on the vibe I was trying to create. But it's funny, I asked Kayla that same question because she's our GA right now, and we were in the bullpen and we were talking, and I was like, I asked her, what should we be looking for? And the first thing she said is, well, first we got to find somebody who's selfish. And I thought that was a really, really, and she's right. And Kayla's the right kind of selfish because she is a great teammate. She's loyal as loyal would come. I mean, you're just not going to meet somebody who's more fun, a better person. She's energetic. People like to be around her, but she is selfish when it comes to playing softball. She knows that it's her responsibility. She wants the team on her back. She said something brilliant her sophomore year. She learned this from her mother, who was a basketball coach, but basically she said, I might get out, but I'm not going to get out the same way twice. Like, you can't beat me. Like, so, we're trying to find the most competitive person on our team who's the most selfish. And then, after that, we'll kind of figure it out.
You mentioned she's a GA. What will be her role with your program moving forward? And what is her plans? Is she going to continue to play pro? Does she want to extend her career to perhaps try to have an opportunity maybe to try to make participate in the Olympics down the road? What's her plans?
Well, she's getting her MBA right now. This is her last year. So she started it last year and she's finishing up her MBA. One thing about Kayla, she's brilliant. That's the other thing. The leadoff batter is going to have to be smart. So it's funny. She keeps talking about this stuff too. I really believe she wants to continue to play. I do think she wants a shot at the national team. And she's been certainly in the pool and played in some tournaments and stuff. Honestly, I think she's a no-brainer if she continues to go the direction she's going to go. I'll be surprised if she doesn't get picked. There'd be absolutely no reason, because she can play any position on the field and she can play it better than most people. So, and when you have a catcher, so on the national team, there's just so few spots. You need to have several catchers, and that means the catchers need to play another position. So she's just got a unique skill set that most people just don't possess. She's incredibly fast. She's strong. She's got all the tangibles and intangibles. So I do believe she wants to continue to play. I could honestly see her being an AD one day at a certain level. I could see her, she's a great coach. When I see her coaching, at camps and stuff like that, she's an exceptional coach. So I could see her going that direction for a little while, but honestly, she's a boss. I mean, like, she acts like a boss. She talks like a boss. She dresses like a boss, walks like a boss. Like, one day, I'll be too old to see this, but one day she would be my boss, I think. And that's the kind of person she is. But, we have several people on our team that have that mental makeup. And I think that's the thing that drives Kentucky. So I think in that way, she's not unique, but certainly the skill set she brings is.
Of course, she's a two-time All-American. There's been two Kentucky players. I couldn't believe this when I read Chris Scholes' notes. There's been two players that have been a two-time All-American. Obviously, Kayla Kowalik, and of course, Erin Koffel, who returns, who's coming off an incredible year, 440, 19 homers, 55 RBIs. Just an insane video game numbers. Deal. She just spent most of the summer with the U.S. national team. Played, obviously, in the Pan American Games in Chile, in Santiago, Chile, winning the gold there. The only college player on that roster. She also participated in the Japan All-Star Series there. How is she? What has it been like with her getting that experience with the U.S. national team? How has that made her even better?
I think first of all, she's received great coaching from a number of people. And I think anytime an athlete can get perspective from an elite array of coaches, I think that that's wonderful. So, and she's really good about taking something from everybody. So she's really In that way, I think she's improved her game, whether it's finding windows to throw the ball over to first base or it's, just her approach in the box, whatever. So I think she's done a really good job of learning from the excellent coaches who are part of the national team staff. The other thing I think that you can see she's gained a lot of confidence. And so when you're around those older players who are just so elite and they have the reason they're elite is they have incredible mindsets. They're physically good and all that, but they're definitely a step above most when it comes to the mental side of the game. And when every time that she comes back from being around them, you can tell that she's just brings her game up in each level as she does like a mature person would from a mindset perspective. So I think she's playing with more confidence than she ever has. I think she does a good job of speaking with other people. She's a great teammate. She's a really hardest worker on the field. I mean, you're never going to find anybody who works harder than she does. Certainly we have other players on our team who can keep up with her in terms of work ethic, but nobody will outwork her. She'll make sure that does not happen. And, I just think that her steadiness and her confidence will help her as the season comes around.
The thing that impresses me about her is teams pitch around her. She led the nation in walks, and she still produced the numbers that she did. How is she so efficient of an offensive player like that? Is she obviously you've had a lot of great hitters. Brittany Cervantes comes to mind and things like that, but is she the best pure hitter that the program has had? When you consider the fact that teams pitched around her and she was still successful, because a lot of hitters sometimes would maybe chase the ball out of the strike zone because they get frustrated. They feel they got to do more, but she doesn't do that.
No, I mean, she does a really good job of working on that. I think she, in addition to the coaching and all the coaching that we give her here at Kentucky, I think that her father is a great coach. And I think in the off season, when we can't be around her, she works on that all the time. So she's constantly working on her pitch recognition, identification, and then also her plate discipline. But with that said, I think she trusts the people behind her. And so that's the other thing. She's unlike Kayla, who says you got to be really selfish at the leadoff spot. Erin, on the other hand, is okay passing the bat down. So she doesn't get antsy and try to do too much. And I think that's one of the key things when you're in a situation where people are walking you so often.
Obviously, when you have a great player like her, one of the great things about her is she will help create opportunities for other hitters in the lineup. They'll make them other better because teams pitch around her, so that creates opportunities for others. Like you mentioned, she's willing to pass the baton. So talk about the other hitters that you have, because you have some returning as well, and they're going to obviously benefit from teams that maybe choose not to pitch to Erin Koffel. Hey, they're going to get opportunities. So talk about some of the other hitters that stands out so for you this year.
Well, the middle of the order hitters. Well, first of all, Riley Smith, who's been on the team since her 5th year, and she's somebody who a lot of time goes under the radar, but I can't tell you the number of times that she's come up with a key defensive play or a key hit or something like that in a big game. And she led her team in hitting this fall. Yeah, she looks different. Her swing looks different. I mean, she has she's not just a person creating now. She is jacking the ball out of the park regularly. She looks like a completely different ball player. So right now she is somebody who I think is impressive and doing a great job. Grace Lawson has finally gotten comfortable in our system. She started to at the end of last year, and she had a tremendous off season. Is a lot stronger, really knows what she's trying to do. And we're expecting her to do great things in the middle of the order. Carissa Hamilton, who was a freshman last year, and she had the toughest job probably in America, because when she was recruited, there was no COVID yet. And she is somebody who was picked. She's a catcher. She was the Indiana Gatorade Player of the Year, behind the dish, all that sort of stuff. And she is a tremendous, tremendous player. She's probably one of the strongest hitters that we've ever had at Kentucky. She's just country strong. She is good. And then we haven't probably arguably the best freshman class that we've ever produced. We had a great freshman class. That Nunley class was tremendous, but also the freshman class we have right now. I mean, when you look at us, we're going to look very different. They're all 5'10" plus. They're all weigh a lot. They're athletic. They play multiple sports. They can play multiple positions. They are very, very good. So I think people are going to be very impressed with the freshmen we roll out.
Yeah, I think I heard you in an interview you did locally during fall ball. You said that this might be your strongest team, that maybe even like most powerful, just from an athletic standpoint, from just what they can hit the ball out of the park, but just athletic wise, a combination of those things.
Yeah, I think so. I think, we were really fortunate because we have 8 newcomers. Of the 8, 7 are freshmen, and of the 7, 5 of them are from Kentucky. And they're all second generation Kentucky people, meaning their parents or whatever came to Kentucky, and several of them were athletes at Kentucky. So we just it was the perfect storm when you combine them with the shortstop that is 6 feet tall, that is just incredible and very strong also. So yeah, I'm really impressed with our freshmen, but like everything else, they're going to have to get used to it. And we have a very difficult schedule from the jump. So they're going to have to be able to learn very, very quickly, but I think they will. And I feel good about where we're at right now.
You a difficult schedule? I'm shocked. what,
Yeah.
what a surprise! Kentucky played a tough schedule. What else is new?
Yeah, I
Uh,
know, right? It got a lot harder though. We were going out to San Diego and playing, a couple of teams dropped out, and then San Diego added Stanford and Minnesota. So, that's but we're up for the challenge. We like to compete, so it'll be all right.
you mentioned obviously the freshman class. How do you envision them contributing, not just offensively, but defensively? How do you envision your defense looking like?
Well, that's the hard part, right? Because I think we have one of the best shortstops, certainly in the freshman class in the country right now. But she's, competing with Erin Koffel for the spot, so that's going to be a tough. That's tough because Erin's not going to really. Erin's a great teammate, but it's hard to beat her out. At third base we have a couple people vying for the spot. You have Lawson, who looks great. You have Allie Hutchins, who's one of the freshmen, who is very, very strong and a great hitter and an awesome competitor. So you have them competing for the spot there. I have a hitter. It might surprise some people. Her name's Erica Thulin. She's been on the team quite a bit, but she's really competing for the DH spot, and she's very strong too. So that looks good. Right now, Margaret Tobias, who is a junior, looks great at second base. Although we have a freshman, Cam Lookadoo, looks good there. And then we have this person, Emery Donaldson is one of my favorite leadoff batter type people of all time. So she's got to figure out some college stuff, but she's somebody that can play in the outfield and any position in the infield. So she's vying for some stuff there. And then we have at first base, you're looking at, there's kind of a two-way race right there between Miko Harrison and Lauren Borzilleri. So, and they're both doing really well out there. So that, the infield, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of competition from young people. And I expect that we'll be very good in those spots.
Pitching wise, we've talked about obviously Stephanie. You're going to get asked obviously how she's doing based on obviously coming back from her injury plagued season last season. But you obviously have other arms. You added Jayton Vickers, transfer out of Rutgers, who I saw live last year, a lefty with a nasty spin from what I remember watching her live pitching wise. You're adding her 11 wins last year. I thought that was a really awesome pickup there. You obviously got Alexa, who we've talked about, I feel like the last couple of years, pitched on the Italian Olympic team, and everybody's had to step up last year with the injuries and won 11 games last year. Just talk about your pitching staff as a whole.
Yeah, you're right. Jaden Vickers is really good. She not only spins the ball from the left side, but she also has really good command, which is weird for a lot of lefties have no command at all. And so the fact that she can command her stuff, spin it as much as she does, and she's incredibly competitive and learns the game very fast. So I've been really impressed with her. At her work ethic and also her overall natural ability to get things done. She looks great. Alexia, I think, has recommitted herself, came back from the summer, looks incredibly strong. Her stuff is better. Her changeup doesn't look anything like it used to. It's very deceptive right now, and it's really keeping batters off balance. I've been really happy. As far as athletes go, I've been really happy with the way that she came back and looks probably one of the most improved players I've ever coached in that way. We have a freshman, Sydney Langdon, and she is by far the most powerful freshman we've ever brought in. She is very good. She has electric stuff, and she's just really working on dialing in her zone and everything. Like most freshmen, they can throw the ball all over the place in travel ball and in high school ball, and kids are going to swing out of the zone, and the umpires call crap in the box and all that. And so I think one of the hardest things to figure out when you get to college is the zone is just, you have to throw it through the zone, or people are going to take their walks. And so that's kind of the phase that she's in right now, but we expect big things out of her. And then we have Taylor Hess, another lefty. So this is, it's been a while since we've had some competitive lefties, and Hess is doing a great job keeping people off balance with her changing speeds and stuff like that. So I feel like we have a number of starters in this lineup. I feel good about where they're at. They're confident. They're commanding their pitches. They look very good. So I think that I just think we have a lot more confidence in the bullpen, a lot more structure, just because of what we went through last year. It changed the way we were training in the off season, and I think that will be really helpful. And then I think our outfield is outstanding. I mean, I think we have Taylor Ebbs is coming back, who's arguably our best situational hitter. Vanessa Nesby, who's not only competing well, but competing for the leadoff position in the batting lineup. She's doing a great job. And then you have Jenna Blanton also, who is doing a really good job and started in center field for us last year. So we have the thing that's different this year is we have a lot of people competing for a lot of spots. And I think it's helped us level up our game. And I think it'll help us in this tough schedule that we have coming up. And then, I haven't talked about our catching spot, but, I've talked a little bit about Hamilton. And then we have Hallie Mitchell, who's a great left-handed hitter, as well as Ella Emmert, who's probably right now, arguably our best defensive catcher.
With the catcher, because they're a part of the pitching staff, do you feel like it could be a situation where certain catchers might catch a certain pitchers, or you rather have a catcher kind of stand out and catch? How do you approach the catching position for the first time? That you don't have a Kayla Kowalik.
Well, I don't know. I don't know yet. I will tell you though that every catcher who's caught at Kentucky in our tenure has at one point or time in their career made at least all conference. So it's a position we feel comfortable coaching. But I will tell you right now, I do not give on defense in the catching position. Some people will give for offense. I will not. And so it's going to be the person who handles the pitchers the best or handles that pitcher the best. So right now we're still trying to figure that out. They're all kind of finding their place. They're all fit, they're catching multiple pitchers all the time. We're working hard on our receiving skills. And the person who's, basically steals the most strikes will be the one who's behind the dish.
Do you have leaders established, or is that still evolving?
Right now you have to give the nod to Hamilton. If we were going to start tomorrow, Hamilton would be the starter because she's all around the best player. Yeah. But I will be honest with you. I feel completely comfortable with Ella and with Hallie also. So I don't think that, I think that's one of the positions on the outfield positions or whatever are really, they're 50-50, 49, 51 kind of situation. It's not like the, Koffel who's kind of cemented herself in this shortstop position. So, that will evolve and really probably evolve through February, to be honest with you.
Is this the most deepest versatile roster you've had?
I would say this roster and the 2014 roster, the one that went to the World Series, because that was in that class that was the sophomore class of the, the Nunleys and stuff. And there were 7 girls in that class who were just awesome all the way around. So we had a great senior class, big, deep senior class and a big, deep sophomore class that year. So this year we're very heavy in the senior class and very heavy in the freshman class in terms of roster numbers. So I think, but this is the deepest we've been in a very, very long time.
I would imagine Erin Koff, obviously with the position playing shortstop, with her credentials, she's one of your team leaders. Is she a vocal leader? Is she a leader by example? And do you have other leaders as well to lead either by example or lead by being vocal?
One of the things we're working on, I'll tell you, I have a lot of people who lead by example. That's our character is without question. I could take all 24 people on our roster and I would put them out in the world and I would feel great about the way that they handle themselves. And that's not just coach speak. That is the honest to God truth. From a local perspective or from a vocal perspective, though, I'm going to say we are C- if I was going to grade our team as a general rule. I think one of the things they're so nice that sometimes that they don't, we're working on really like being comfortable saying what you want or whatever, but I think we're doing a great job with it. And I would have given us a, D- at the beginning of the year. So I think we're trending in the right direction. I think from a vocal perspective, I think Grace Lawson is our vocal leader. Her and Miko Harrison, I think those two are the most vocal in terms of leading. And but we have so many people who lead by example, even like that you would never think of, like Lauren Borzilleri just handles herself in a way. She is brilliant. Her knowledge of the game is without question. So I love how she plays. She always does things. Margaret Tobias is incredible in terms of just her knowledge of the game. So we're trying to figure out the vocal thing, but certainly by example, we are great. We're elite.
Your staff obviously expanded as it did in the sporting in general with softball with the extra assistant, which I know you're excited about because that's something you were in favor of having that extra full-time position coach of as an option there, just because it creates more opportunities for coaches to get involved and more players get involved in the game and to help the student athletes coach. So just talk about adding Grace to your staff and now the expansion of the staff as a whole now across the sport.
Well, adding Grace has been great. And so she was with us as a volunteer for 2 years. So it's nice that she doesn't have to do lessons every night to try to make ends meet. But this is probably one of the biggest things that's going to happen for Kentucky that's very unusual. Grace is now our pitching coach. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm still in the bullpens and doing my thing, and I will call the pitches for Stephanie, but Grace is taking out. So because Stephanie's grandfathered in, and it would be weird just switching from me. That's what how we're kind of handling it. But now I'm handling that position very similar to the way that it's freeing me up to manage some of the other stuff a little bit better. So that's going to be something that's unique to us. But Grace and I have been together for 7 years. So it's not like we're new. And actually we share an office now. So it was the only place that we had enough space to add another person. So I feel great about it. She's incredibly intelligent. I wouldn't just do it with anybody. So I feel good about it. It changes the dynamic of Kentucky softball. And I think it's really helped us in the offseason really level up in a number of ways, not just in the bullpen.
Well, that's big news. Caught me off guard on that one.
Yeah.
That's big news. I mean, what led you to make that decision to give up the pitch calling there? Obviously, you can still do it, as you mentioned, with Stephanie, who's been there. But what led you to kind of hand the reins to Grace? And you'll still oversee it, I would assume, and you'll talk strategy and things. But just take me through that decision, because that can't be easy to just give that up. You had to probably think about that a lot.
Well, I did. I had to think about it a lot. But Grace is somebody that we've been prepping to do this. We knew this was coming. And so we were hopeful that it would happen. So she's been somebody that we've been prepping for 2 years prior to this season. So and she had been calling pitches and scrimmages and stuff like that. So first, Grace is the right person. And I can't stress that enough. When you look at my staff, I have a lot of continuity because they're the right person for the gig. And so in this case, Grace was the right person. We knew that she could handle the position, and she just had to learn a couple of nuances or whatever. The second thing is Grace is arguably the smartest person I know, which is really cool. And she learns. I can't say enough about Grace. And there are things she's better than me at. I was never a pitcher, so I don't have a feel for certain things where she does. And the other thing I can't stress enough is I believe to be a good pitching coach, you have to be about the pitcher. And Grace, even though she is a pitcher, she's one of the rare pitchers that understands that. So she's a pitcher who, from a pitch calling perspective and a coaching perspective, acts more like a catcher. And that's a very, very rare combination. That's why I knew she was the right person. With that said, I'm scouting every game as if I was the pitch caller. And that way I know what's going on when it's going on. So those times that I'm away from the team, when we're not doing practice and stuff like that, I'm certainly still going to scout and all that. But the other thing is it's freed me up to do a little cage work with some of the hitters, which helps because with expanding roster sizes and stuff like that, you really need more than one hitting person, that way. So certainly Coach Himes is still the hitting coach, but, I can pitch in there and help a little bit with that while she's running other parts of the offense and things like that. So I think it's the best thing for our program right now.
Will you still get to make the decision as far as if you want to make a pitching change? Is that still your decision? Is that something?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So okay. I'm still like I said.
No. I'm making all those decisions. I make, obviously with the consult of my, my
Sure.
staff, but I make all lineup decisions. So in my opinion, the head coach has to do that. There can't be, there can't be anything that's wishy-washy. I will take advice from anybody, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. So I make all those decisions.
Obviously, when it comes to pitching, obviously there's a lot of news going on with pitching in general in the sport with the pitch clock. They adjusted once again the illegal pitch rules over the off season. As coaches, do you how do you teach your players? For example, a pitch clock. Is that something you talk to your players about? Is that something you work on? And then obviously the rule changes, like I said, with the adjustments of the illegal pitch. What's been your reaction to that?
Well, I think that, the pitch clock's great. I thought the rules committee nailed it this year. I think every decision that they made was kind of fan friendly. It in my opinion, made the sport a lot better in that way. So sure, there's going to be some growing pains and stuff like that with it, but I thought they did it. They were really focused and did a good job with the decisions that they made. With that said, we played a pretty good schedule. We tried to use the pitch clock rules and all that as it went. And I will tell you, we play this really cool game in the fall. It's a Halloween game. Very cool game. We played Miami of Ohio, who's a good team, and they have a new pitching staff. So we weren't familiar with them at all. And they had this freshman pitcher. So they were using the armband, and this freshman pitcher leaps. And I'm not sure she was using the armband correctly. I think it was probably illegal the way she was, but that's something the umpire is going to have to iron out. And so you were kind of being quick pitched with somebody leaping. So the time between pitches and like your reaction time, it really sped up the game and sped up the hitters a little bit. So I think first hitters are going to have to get used to, because a lot of pitchers are like, okay, what did she just call? And they're trying to find it on the card. Now you don't have to do that. It'll be like curve or whatever. And so I think that there'll be less time on the mound. So I think hitters are going to have to get used to that. And then just obviously the leaping thing, I think people will get used to it, but it's the person can be, if they're very explosive, on top of you. So there's going to be a little bit of a timing adjustment for sure.
Yeah, and I think the pitch clock is really good. I've always been a defender of the pitchers and saying, look, it's just as much the hitters being in the box quickly too. Like I feel like pitchers get picked on that, and I've always defended them because I'm like, on one hand, we always say the pitchers are so important, every pitch matters, but yet we're also sending the message, well, do it as quickly as you can. Well, why aren't the hitters kind of held accountable? That's something that Coach Walton has brought up, and it seems like that could be something also that they do in the international game and be part of also of pace of play.
I think they will be. I think the pitch clock will help with that. I will tell you, the team that we played, so Miami, man, we were even talking about it in game. They're out of the box routine. Like the hitters were going from the box, taking several steps out and several steps back in. And as the game was going on, we're like, wow, that's gonna, we were talking about it from our perspective, like, wow, if our hitter, a lot of ours don't, we have like one or two that do that. And we were thinking, wow, that is something that would have to change, because our pitcher, essentially, you can run a hurry up offense and really get the batters off time. So I think I think it's one thing that the hitters will have to figure out. I think they will. I mean, I like everything else, I think people will adjust, but certainly the umpires are going to it helps the umpires when there's a visible pitch clock. It helps not yell at the umpires. The batter's just going to have to do it. And so I think that really helps them out quite a bit.
You mentioned earlier another tough schedule you've made up. Just talk about your scheduling philosophy and into this year, and then will that be impacted at all in the future with obviously Oklahoma, Texas joining the SEC? As I understand, the conference games will still stay the same, but still, is there any impact that you or effect from a non-conference schedule in the future as a result of the SEC obviously getting again stronger, which is even crazy to say, but it's going to get even stronger?
Yeah, well, because we're playing the same number of conference games, I don't know that there'll be a big change that way. The thing that and we already play Oklahoma and Texas anyway, like we have a number of times. So, and who likes to play Oklahoma? So whatever with that. But like the thing is, so how you get your points is you beat teams out of conference and then you bring them back into your conference. So the curious thing is going to be, with all this conference realignment, what happens RPI wise to the other leagues and the other conferences with the demise of the Pac-12 and stuff like that. So, that's something that I'm curious. I don't know how the numbers are going to shake out yet, because you have to go play great teams get some quality wins, you bring those wins back to your conference, and that's how your conference RPI gets strong, right? That's why people in your conference shouldn't play weak teams, because it just hurts the conference as a whole. And in the SEC, we've made it a priority to make sure that our out of conference games, the majority of them are high RPI games. So, with you have a couple more great teams coming in our league, so you can't play them anymore. You have the Pac-12 is going away. And those are warm weather places that you would typically fly to and stuff in February. So how are these matchups going to get created for RPI points reasons? And that's something that I think is going to have to shake up. I mean, I don't know. Do you fly? And I mean, I don't know, because the state of Texas, we're already playing them in our league. California, I guess you could still fly out to California, but are they going to have high RPI points? Because they're going to be in the Big Ten. Does the Big Ten RPI get significantly higher now because they're adding more quality teams? I would assume so. So would you schedule more Big 10 teams? Probably. That kind of situation. So we're just going to have to figure that stuff out. And obviously the ACC is good. So we'll have to figure all that stuff out over the next couple of years.
Well, and the interesting thing is you're going to have 15 schools now in the conference, and that's significant from a postseason standpoint, because if you get everybody in, that's 15 teams in 16 regional sites. And I wonder, could they adjust the postseason? Is that going to have an impact? Where are they going to eventually change the rule where conference teams will be in the same regionals, which is currently not allowed? Or that's kind of something too that I'm wondering about with these larger conferences, not just the SEC, but Big Ten's growing, etc.
Yeah, that is true. I would be surprised if all of us got in, though. I think what you're going to start seeing, I mean, I don't know, but I think you're going to have more teams not get in. I mean, we've had, the past couple of years, we've had 12 and 13 get in. I don't think you're going to get that. I think you're going to have more teams that have a losing record, certainly. So I just think that that's something that's going to get, that's something that's going to have to, or if they don't have a losing record, they're going to be playing teams that they can beat, but their RPI is going to be low. So, I don't think we'll be getting 15 in, but I don't think the NCAA tournament will change in that way. I just think that you'll see fewer SEC teams with the bid. We're still going to have a significant number. We're just not going to have 100%.
Well, that's a great point. The mathematics just suggests that certain teams are just not going to win as many and not be eligible for the tournament. So to your point, it's a valid point. Great counter to that there, but it's still going to be wild. The wild scene.
Yeah. Fun, right? And I mean, that's the thing. Like we'll talk about football, right? Everyone knows that the Big Ten championship is Ohio State, Michigan. It's not the championship game, but it's the best game on TV. It's the game you want to watch. You're going to see those matchups in the SEC all the time. You're going to see, Oklahoma's going to whoever Oklahoma's going to play is going to get the best TV ratings going. And if you can beat them, that's something. So we're just going to be made for TV every single weekend. And I think that that's going to be special.
How is that going to impact the conference tournament format? Is everybody still going to be able to participate in that? Or has that even been decided yet? How is that going to impact perhaps the conference tournament format with once Oklahoma and Texas join?
Well, I think right now we're talking about everybody being in it, to be honest with you, but that's one of those things I'll be surprised doesn't change. We're also talking about, do you do neutral site? Do you not? I think conference tournaments are very flexible because you're only dealing with yourself. So I think we'll be figuring, I would be surprised if the structure of the tournament doesn't change over the next, since I've been in the league 17 years, I think the structure of the tournament has changed 2 or 3 times. So I think that that's something that, we might, let's say everybody goes and you try to figure that out and a couple of games aren't on ESPN and stuff like that. That's probably the first go around. But if they find that we can't fit it in that way, or if it has to be, we'll either have to expand it or have fewer teams. And I think we have a hard time staying on time anyway. So I mean, it's ridiculous actually, but I love the tournament. I love that ESPN comes. It's kind of a, that's kind of the warm up for the World Series kind of postseason. So I think it's a special event, but I think I'd be surprised if it doesn't look different in a couple of years.
Okay, we'll have to monitor that. We get to spend so many hours. I didn't Nutricide. Wow, that's a whole other topic for another day.
Yeah.
Did not know that. I did. Coach Murphy did mention that as that's been a conversation for perhaps, but we'll get to that down the road. I'll end it with this with you because you've been so kind, obviously as always, in kind of talking to us. What are going to be a couple keys for this team once you get to February and the season gets going? What are a couple keys for this team to being successful? Or maybe a couple questions that you're curious about once you play other opponents when it gets going in February?
Um, well, I think a couple of keys are we've got to make sure that our strikeout rate goes down, but we're still making hard contact. So I think that that's going to be huge. We need to turn the lineup over, and I think that those all feed into each other. I think if our team can do a better job of turning the lineup over, that seems to be when we're at our best. I think that's a couple of keys, and then we're going to have to make sure that we're multiple starters in the circle, and we have a lot of different looks, and we've got to make sure that those looks are firing in all cylinders. And I think if we can continue to dominate in the circle, and if we can turn the lineup over, I think we're going to be one of the best teams in the country.
That is head coach Rachel Lawson, Kentucky head coach, joining us here on In the Circle. Coach, always a pleasure for our traditional get together. Always enjoy talking to you about not just your program, but obviously the sport of softball. You always have great insights and perspective on the game that I always enjoy hearing about. Look forward to seeing you in person in Clearwater when you get there this year, part of the tournament there. But as always, thanks for being great to us and talking to us during your busy schedule. And like I said, happy holidays, and we'll see you during the season.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on. Thank you so much.